I'm going to do anything in my power. And I've just always been like that since I started in this business and to this day. And I want people that understand that is, you should be willing to do whatever to help a team. We tell our players that all the time. So why wouldn't we do the same as coaches then? Why wouldn't we be willing to sweep the floor when it needs to be swept and, wipe sweat spots off the floor when it needs to be wiped up? Why wouldn't we be willing to do the same things if we're asking so much of our players?
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we are joined by the head men's basketball coach at Angelo State University, Vinay Patel. Coach Patel is in his 19th year of coaching, 9 as a head coach. He started as an assistant at West Texas A&M from 2005 to 2014, and then spent 1 year at Rogers State. He took over the Oklahoma City University program from 2015 to 2019, and then from Northwestern Oklahoma State from 2019 to 2022. In his first year at Angelo State, he led the Rams to a 19-3 record in conference, which was the best record for a first-year head coach in school history and second most wins in program history. Coach Patel was named the Co-LSC Coach of the Year in 2023. He was also named Dave Campbell's non-D1 Texas Coach of the Year. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
How are you doing, man?
Man, I'm good. How about you?
Doing good. You had a little class today?
I wouldn't say that I teach a class, more that I facilitate a silent study hall. And now I do that well, so it's not bad.
Man, congrats. I mean, I've watched your podcast. I mean, you've had a lot of my friends on. And I was telling my staff that today, and just how many of my friends you've had on. And I mow a lot. And so I just built a new house here, and so we're trying to get the yard going. So I mow, and every time I mow, I listen to a podcast. And a lot of them happen to be yours.
Wow.
A lot of my friends, like Brendan Shingleton and I, are good friends. We scrimmage every year, and I was listening to his, and I actually called a few people the other day, and I said, "Man, you gotta listen to Brendan's podcast." And unknowingly, I couldn't tell you how many people I told about your podcast.
So you're the reason for the spike that I saw. No, I appreciate that, and I loved his episode. I've been able to be around him with some camps, like me and Matt Garnett with MG Basketball. We would have our camps out at his place, but getting to hear him talk about his program, it was a great talk.
He and you know him really well, and I coached against him. I was in that conference for 4 years, but we became friends over that span. And he always plays the card of I'm not very smart, even though he is, as you know. And I always tell him he's a sandbagger.
Well, we know that for sure now, because I felt the same way. I've heard him talk like that, and again, never really seeing him do much with his team but just being around him after that talk, I thought, what a sandbagger. Like,
I called a coach in his conference that's a close friend of mine. And I said, you need to watch Brennan's. I said, because it's going to change your thought process, because you never really know what's important to somebody because of the way he hides it. And not knowingly, he doesn't hide it knowingly, but he's just so humble with what he does. And so you don't know what's important, what's not. And so just hearing that, I was like, man, he's really talented.
Yeah, and there's way more to him, right? I think that's got to be one of the things I enjoy doing. Why I enjoy doing this the most is we rarely get to know like really what coaches think and feel and how they approach their teams. And, there's only like a select few that we maybe watch on TV, and they get asked a few questions about culture and things like that. And even at that point, I mean, how open and authentic are they going to be in front of, the millions, but one-on-one? And it was just, it's been so much fun.
Well, you've done a great job with this. So, I mean, I love it. I can tell you that. And I don't have a lot of time for reading because I got a 4-year-old that's running around all over my house. And so when I get a chance, I listen to podcasts. So I was actually, yours has been really good for me because I get to one listen to people that I've known too as well. But you've had such a variety of coaches on yours as well, so of all levels. Like Jeff Evans and I've known Jeff Evans almost 20 years.
Man, that was a fun one right there.
So both Coach Broadhurst and Coach Evans, because they coach in Amarillo.
Yep.
Coached at West Texas A&M for almost a decade. So got to know both, got to see them practice, and they came to games. And so, it was neat getting to hear both of those guys as well.
I think you hit on something right there, though. It's really fun to hear from some of those coaches that you would rarely get to meet or know. That's all. It's fun to have those talks, but really interesting to listen to people that you do have a relationship with, and maybe even make more, connect more dots with what you know about their history, how they coach and their programs. For around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I've been able to hit a lot more of those high school coaches that I personally know. And that's kind of been a recurring theme was, man, I've known this guy for 20 years, but really enjoyed listening to him. And so I think you hit on it well.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's, and then to me is, when I'll talk to them or I'll talk to somebody else and they'll say, hey, have you heard, so-and-so on your podcast? It'll make me want to go listen to somebody else, but I'm one of those, I listen to, it doesn't matter if it's basketball, football. I like listening to good leaders, whatever they are. So, because I just think you can take away from so much from so many people one way or the other,
No doubt. It definitely translates. Like it doesn't matter that book, Legacy, about the All Blacks. That's about rugby.
Yeah.
It's leadership, and you can read that book and it can transform a program, with some of those concepts. So I think you're right on the money, and I've been looking forward to this one. I really appreciate you giving up your time, getting to learn, just read a little bit about your journey. I do want to start, really with that, if you don't mind sharing just kind of how you got to where you are, because it is a journey that not many coaches that get to your level have gone through. But first of all, man, thank you so much for giving up your time.
Hey, excited to be on. I told you I've been a longtime fan of this, and man, I just love the people that you've had on here. So thank you for allowing me to be on here today and visit with you today. But I'll tell you, I've had a unique journey to get to where I was at or where I'm at right now, and it's been fun, for me. But it's been challenging. It's been hard. I'm from a small town, born and raised, Shamrock, Texas. In the Panhandle. If you know me, like where I'm from, because I tell people all the time, I'm really proud of being from Shamrock. I graduated with 26 kids in my class and played high school basketball and was an okay. I wasn't great at by any means, but I was okay. And too small, too slow, too short to play beyond that. You name it. So, I was called into coaching. I felt like I wanted to coach. I knew that from the start. So I went to college. I went to Texas Tech. Wasn't part of their program or anything like that. I just really just went to school, and that was it more than anything. And I was in a class my senior year, and I was with a football player. And we were in this education class together my last year. And I said, what are you getting ready to do? Because he's getting ready to finish as well. And he goes, I'm going to be a GA. And I said, well, what is that? I didn't even know what it is. And he goes, well, I'm going to be a grad assistant coach where I go to grad school and I coach at the same time. And me being as naive as I was back then, and I go, well, I want to be a GA, not knowing everything of how to become one or anything like that, or, hey, you probably needed to play or be a manager or anything, I wasn't even a part of anything. So I wrote emails, handwritten letters, over 300 plus across the country, just trying to GA, trying to volunteer, just
Wow.
have an opportunity to help a team. And Rick Cooper at West Texas A&M responds to an email and, agrees to meet with me. So I drive down, I'm 21 years old, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, so I go down, shirt and tie. Their office was on the second floor of the field house. I, go up the stairs, open the door, and there's a GA there. There's an assistant coach there. And I said, hey, I'm here to meet Coach Cooper today. And they said, well, he's not in.
Oh.
And I was like, what? And they just said he wasn't in today. So, and I drove from Lubbock to Canyon, about a 90-minute drive, so I drove down, and so I got back in my car and I'm driving back to Lubbock, and I'm a little frustrated. And about halfway into my drive back, Coach Cooper calls me and he completely forgot. And at the time, and he said, "Hey, I'll come up there to meet with you." And I
Wow.
said, "Oh," I said, "Give me another day. I'll come back down. You just give me another day that works." And so I think about a week later, I go back down and I joke with people. He allowed me to be a volunteer grad assistant. And I joke with people and I say the only reason he gave me a shot is because he forgot to show up the first time.
Out of guilt.
So I go in as a volunteer my first year, and I'm basically a glorified manager, but I didn't care. I was excited to get a chance to work with the college team, and I didn't have keys to the field house, I didn't have keys to an office, anything. So I sat on the steps about 7:15 every morning, waiting on John Hassey to get there, who was an assistant AD, or any coach to show up to let me in. And so then I'd go to work whenever I got there. I knew, and I was smart enough to at least understand how unique of an opportunity it was for me. And so I wanted to take full advantage of it. So I had the mindset, I'm going to be the first one there. I'm going to be the last one to leave every day. And I'm going to do whatever they ask me to do. And so that first year, I think I was essentially a glorified manager. I did laundry. I typed stuff. Coach would have me type letters and spreadsheets, you name it. I did film exchange, old school film exchange with VHS and stuff.
Yeah.
People forget that. And I just did those things, and I tried to be really good at that. I sat in my assistant coach's office. Justin Ashley was assistant at the time, and would just ask him a lot of questions and just soak up, as much information as he would give me. So then my second year, I got a little bit more to do. I got to jump into some recruiting and things like that as well that second year. And, I think like any GA, you get 2 years, you get a master's, then what? And so that thought process started occurring, is what am I going to do after this? And I get close to the end, and Pete Peterson has an assistant job open at Texas A&M Kingsville. So I drive 15 hours down to Kingsville to interview with Pete Peterson. He offers me the job. When I come back, West Texas A&M says, "Hey, we'll create a job if you stay here, and you can be the men's and women's second assistant at the same time." And I just
How
say,
do you even do that? How is that possible?
I didn't know the logistics of it at the time, but I just said, "Hey, we'll figure it out." And so I'll tell you, I learned a lot those 3 years. I did it for 3 years, and but to me, I got 6 years out of it because I'm in two practices every day. I'm in back-to-back practices with the girls and the guys. I'm recruiting for both. I'm scouting for both. I'm doing everything for both. So all that I missed, not being a player in college or not being a manager in college, I felt like I got to catch up because I got to do so much those 3 years. But it was exhausting, But I was with two really good coaches. The women's coach was Krista Gerlich, who's the head coach at Texas Tech now. The women's assistant was Kevin Baker, who ended up being the head coach at UTEP. And then there was me on that side. And then the men's side, we were still the same. It was Coach Cooper, Coach Ashley, and myself. And so I did that for 3 years, and I just was really fortunate. After that third year, I got bumped up to be the lead assistant on the men's side. And so I did that, for a few years. And all in all, I was at West Texas A&M for about 9 years, just a little over 9 years. And then, I go to Rogers State, which is a Division II in Oklahoma. Good friend of mine was the head coach there, Justin Barkley. And this will tell you about networking and, all the stuff that you get to do. When I was a grad assistant, I told you I did film exchange. Justin Ashley was the grad assistant for Northeastern Oklahoma State. And we got to know each other through film exchange, through trading tape. And so now, he was a good friend. And, I go up to Rogers State, and I wanted to be with a good friend and learn some new stuff. He played pretty fast back then. And so I go there for a year. They're transitioning NAI to D2. We win 20 games together that first year. And I'm telling you, at the time, it was one of the most fun years of coaching I had because we were pretty close in age and everything else. So we just had a lot of fun together. His wife and my wife became friends, and my wife was in coaching as well at that time. But my second year we start, and Tyler Wayman, who is the other assistant for us, we're driving to Dallas to recruit, and I get a call from Justin Barkley, and he's upset with me, and I don't know what's going on at the time, and he says, "Well, I heard you're in the mix to get the Oklahoma City job, you know," and I hadn't even heard anything at the time, and I get off the phone with him, and literally about 10 minutes later, the athletic director from Oklahoma City calls me, and I don't know how he knew before I even knew. And so I take the call, and they had a late opening. Their coach took a Division I job up at Oakland. So I go down to night interview in Oklahoma City later that weekend, and I get hired on October 15th. And I get cleared at 4 o'clock by HR. And at 4:05, I have my first practice. And so there was about 4 days, where we're waiting on HR paperwork. So all I'm doing is watching Synergy. I can't be with the team, can't do anything at the time, and I'm memorizing names on the roster.
Wow.
So finally get cleared to have that first practice. I'm going, okay, I'm at least going to know their names, and because we're 2 weeks away from having our first game when I take that job. And so I start running practice, and I start by doing some easy shell stuff, and kind of I'm telling a kid, hey, Jonathan, get over here. And he looks at me and goes, it's John. And I said, okay, I just memorized the roster.
Yeah.
So they're calling, one kid Casa, and I'm going, there's not even a Casa on the roster. His name was Caleb House. And then they're calling another kid Jeff, and I'm going, there's not even a Jeff. And his kid was named Lou Dunbar, and he really shot the ball well. So instead of calling him Steph Curry, they would always call him Jeff Curry. And so I don't know any of this, and I'm trying to have practice my first day, and I'm going, what did I just do? And so then the very next day, the preseason polls come out, and we're picked probably the lowest in school history at the time, because Oklahoma City is a storied program. They won 6 national titles. It's just an unbelievable program. And I'm just going, what did I just do? I said, this is my first head job. I'm 30 years old. And I said, I'm going to get fired. I said, expectations here are unbelievable. You walk in the gym, there's 70 plus national championship banners in the rafters from all sports.
Wow.
And here we are, picked one of the lowest ever. And we played ugly that year. We walked the ball up the floor. We were not talented at all. We ran sets, but we were very defensive that year. We had to play ugly, and we finished second in the league and make the national tournament. I have no clue how. And, we go to the national tournament, and we play the number 4 team in the country. They are leading the nation in scoring at 98 a game, Mid-America Nazarene at the time. And we are obviously not leading the nation in scoring at that stage. We're walking the ball up the floor. And this is kind of a side note, and I know I'm giving you a lot on this very first one, but
good.
I ran a transition defensive scheme that came from the 90s. And there was a famous coach back in the day, Jim Seward, and he ran a high-octane offense, and he was in the Lone Star. And Rick Cooper was a young defensive coach at West Texas A&M, and they were in the Lone Star. And they were Jim Seward's team scoring over 100 plus a game back then. And they were trying to figure out how to beat them, so they came up with this transition defensive scheme. Well, I had to be really good defensively that year, and I knew we couldn't score a lot, so I decided to put that scheme in for that year. So here we are 30 years later. The assistant for Jim Seward is the head coach at Mid-America Nazarene. Then here I am, the head coach at Oklahoma City. So it was that same offensive scheme versus that same defensive scheme. And we go to overtime, 70 all. And we end up losing the game, but I was just like,
it worked though. Yeah.
It worked, And so anyways, had an unbelievable time at Oklahoma City, had 4 really good years there. My wife, who's also in coaching, at the time, she played college basketball. Really, she's who you should have on the podcast, probably.
I saw that in your notes. I was like, that's cool.
She won 3 conference titles, as a player, went to an Elite 8. She GA'd, she coached. That's when we started dating, is when she was a second-year grad assistant, and got into high school coaching. And so when we went to Rogers, she was coaching in high school at Owasso High School in Tulsa. And when I got the Oklahoma City job, there wasn't a women's assistant. And that women's assistant knew her coach from college. So he called her and they said, "Oh yeah, Megan will be great." So she gets on at Oklahoma City. Well, Megan wins a national title her second year as an assistant coach at Oklahoma City, and then their national runner-up her fourth year. And so then we had our son, our only son, and we kind of looked at each other and said, "Hey, we can't both coach in college at that stage." So we go to Northwestern Oklahoma State. A really good friend of mine, Brad Franz, is the athletic director there. Uh, Takes a shot on me. He hires me at Division II school, which is the level I wanted to be back at. Uh, and we both decide, hey, this is probably what's going to be best for our family because it got my wife out of coaching as well. She ended up getting into administration there and became an assistant AD there. And I take Northwestern at a crazy time. We have my first year, inherit a program that had won 8 games. I think we win 10 my first year. And now I'm ready to make changes, and COVID hits.
Yeah.
So we, take the team through COVID, which was really hard. Get out of COVID. We bring 2 kids back. They let us overhaul the roster, sign about 14 kids. Jordan Franz and I do. He was our associate head coach, and he was actually athletic director's son. And Jordan was unbelievable. I'm telling you, recruiting and with the guys. And it was just me and him, and we go to work. And we're trying to sign guys. And, Northwestern's in Alva, Oklahoma, 6,000 people, 2 hours from any major city at all. And it's just hard to recruit to at times. And to me, recruiting is about relationships. So we just put our heads down and we build a team and somehow win 20 games that year. And Angelo State opens up, and my eyes had always been set on Angelo State because my sister came here in 2000, graduated, got married, never left.
Oh, wow.
I probably spent the last 15 plus Christmases in San Angelo. And so the job opens and my AD calls me right away and says, "You're going after that job, aren't you?" And I said, I have to. So the day I get hired here, my parents actually built a house here and retired here 5 weeks before I got the job. So I got mom, dad here. I got my sister here. I got everybody in San Angelo. So it was no brainer for me to want to be at Angelo State. And it was a terrific program. And, I was taking over for Cinco Boone, who was a friend of mine, and he's now at Abilene Christian coaching. And, Cinco had won so much here, and Beard before him, and Fred Reich before him. And you just kind of go through the history of Angelo State. And there's been a ton of success here. And it was a place I wanted to be because I think it's one of the best jobs in the country for this level. But also because my family was here.
Yeah.
And so, I tell people all the time, like, there's no unique path to get to where you want to be at. And the whole time, my wife and I couldn't tell you how many times we'd be in a car and we'd talk, like, where do we need to go to get to Angelo State? Because we knew we wanted to be here. And that's what made this thing so special for us when we got it. And, I tell my staff all the time, there's no true path. I mean, just look at me. I didn't play. I didn't do it. I've just tried to work. I mean, that's been my biggest thing is I want people to work, and I want people that work for me to work hard. And that's why I've always appreciated the assistants I've had, because I've been blessed with the people I have had on my staff because they have been tremendous workers. And, they're the reasons, and the players are the reasons. I mean, that's why I'm at where I'm at today is, you surround yourself with great people. And, we try to do that in recruiting, and we try to do that with our staff. And I think if you do that, then you have a chance to be successful. And so for me, I've been fortunate. I've been surrounded by really good people from my grad assistant year all the way till today. It's just, I've been surrounded by incredible people. And, I think you learn from everybody. And it doesn't matter if, you're a head coach, you're the grad assistant, you're a player. I think we all learn from each other. And, I even still to this day, I'll learn from some of our players, and I'm not afraid for them to come in the office and talk to me about certain things and learn from them. And my assistants come in with ideas, and, we'll take pieces of things that they bring to the table, and I don't claim to be an expert at this. I'm never going to, I always tell people there's 2 types of coaches. And, one type to me in college, I think you hear people say, he's got really good players, but he's not a very good coach. And then you'll hear, he's a really good coach, but he doesn't have very good players. And I tell people all the time, give me the players. I think this is about the players. If you have good players, they're the ones that make you look good. And we've been very, very fortunate to have good players over the years and good assistant coaches.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballogy. Manage and measure your players' skill development and increase accountability year-round utilizing the Ballogy app. Boost inter-squad competition with drills backed by the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, including a 40-shot Ballogy skills assessment. Please visit ballogy.com/teams for information on how you can provide this resource for your team. Man, really appreciate you sharing that, your story, your journey to get to where you are. And it's really cool to see the path and how you always wanted to be here, how your family's there. And one thing that jumped out at me, and I wrote this down, is that you early on, you didn't care about what you're asked to do. You're willing to do anything.
Yep.
And I think it's a great attribute to have for our players. And really, I don't care what level you get to, but if you can hold on to that mentality of I'm not too big or I'm not too important to do any job that's necessary, where I work within our program, I would imagine that mentality you had to write those letters, to get on somewhere, and for years to really, like you said, you're a glorified manager. That's what you felt like. But to have the mentality of I don't care, I'll do it with excellence and the best. I would imagine that's kind of created, the person that you are today.
There's no doubt, when I took that Oklahoma City job, and I told you October 15th, I mean, the date is crazy in itself. And I don't advise anybody to take the call that I took. But, when I got hired, there was 2 part-time assistants there. And because I got there late, they got retained, but they were truly part-time assistants. They both had jobs. They were really only there for practice. And so I remember we're about halfway through the season and it's after practice. And I always, after practice, I always hang around and I'm in the locker room. And, to me, again, it's about relationships. So, I'm in there cutting up with the players and everything else. But I remember I'm pushing the laundry cart, into the laundry room to do the laundry because we didn't have managers, and I didn't have any assistants. There were 2 part-time guys and they had to take off to go to work. And so, I did the laundry every day. And so we're about halfway through the season that year. And, I'm a head coach. I'm a 30-year head coach or 30-year-old head coach. And I pushed the laundry into the laundry room and they walked by and they stopped and they said, "Coach, you're doing the laundry?" And I just laughed and I said, "Well, how do you think it's been getting done? Who do you think's been doing it?" And
Magic.
so, I didn't care. To me, I thought it was so awesome that I was a college head coach, and so I don't care what I had to do. I knew I was going to do anything in my power to be successful. And to me, if that means doing the laundry, then I'm going to do the laundry. I didn't care at that stage. It was, hey, what can I do to help my team be successful? What can I do to help my players be successful? And, if part of that's doing the laundry, then great, I'm going to do the laundry. I didn't care because to me, I'm going to do anything in my power. And I've just always been like that since I started in this business and to this day. And I want people that understand that is, you should be willing to do whatever to help a team. We tell our players that all the time. So why wouldn't we do the same as coaches then? Why wouldn't we be willing to sweep the floor when it needs to be swept and, wipe sweat spots off the floor when it needs to be wiped up? Why wouldn't we be willing to do the same things if we're asking so much of our players?
I love that appreciation that you have for coaching. I feel that way too. Being at a small private school in Dallas Fort Worth, I just love the fact that I get to go out to second period athletics. We only get 43 minutes a day, which I'm actually very thankful for that. There's a lot of places that don't have an athletic period, so having that attitude of gratitude for what you have, understanding that somewhere, some other place, someone else has it worse, right? Or they wish they had what we had. But I get that same feeling when I go out to second period athletics with these guys is I just can't believe I get to do this. I don't think it matters the level that you're at or the type of players, whether they're college or high school players like mine, that most of them don't have aspirations to play. I think that's the goal, is for us not to lose that love and appreciation for what we do.
I tell our guys and, my staff this is I think I'm at the best place there is. I mean, there's not another school like to me, and when I was at Northwestern, I treated Northwestern like it's Duke. When I was at Oklahoma City, I treated Oklahoma City like it was Duke. And to me, when I walk up to our gym every day, I'm just in amazement of this place that one, I made it here. That's the one thing. But two, just how great a place this is.
Yeah.
And I've told my staff, if I ever lose that feeling when I'm walking up to our arena every day, then I don't want to do this anymore.
Hmm.
But because that's what it's been for me is, when I walk into the arena that I'm working at or the gym that I'm working at or whatever, it's, I'm proud to be at the place that I'm at. And I think, I tell guys this all the time, you got to be where you're at. And we tell our people, our players, our staff, we want to pour into the university. I want to do everything we can. And so for me, the fact that, it's still like a shiny new toy for me walking into our gym every day, because that's how it was. And you could probably remember when you first got that job, how fired up you are. And I want to hold on to that feeling because I think that's the feeling that makes you work that hard is, you worked that hard to get to where you're at. Well, why are you going to stop now? Why are you going to stop that work now? Shouldn't you work even harder now that you got what you've actually been wanting to get for so long? And that's what I want from our players as well. Is you've worked however long since you were a kid to get an opportunity to play college basketball.
Yeah.
So now, why would all of a sudden you not work as hard? Why would you not spend the time in the gym getting shots up? Why would you not work as hard as you can in the weight room when it's time to put into the weight room? Why would you shortcut yourself now all of a sudden when you've put in years of work to get to where you're at? Because not very many kids at our level, a lot of times are they getting here just because of talent. There had to be some work ethic there to get to where they're at right now. And for me, those are things I try to help remind our guys is to, we want our guys in the gym, put in the work, and put in, and you've heard so many cliches and I've listened to your podcast and I hear really sharp coaches and smart coaches and they quote all these people and coaches and I'm just not one of those guys. I don't have a bunch of neat coaches. I don't have a hashtag or anything like that. I'm not that person. For me, we tell our guys like there's two things that's important to me, and they were the same things that were important to Rick Cooper when I was working for him all those years ago at West Texas A&M. And it was you're going to play hard, and you're going to play hard while you're tired. And if we can figure out how to do those two things, and I always tell them, hey, that second thing, it's going to take you some time to figure that out.
Hmm.
If we can figure those things out as players, then I'll get out of you what I need to get out of you as a player. There's so much more that goes into it. And I know we're going to talk about some other things too here in a bit as well. But, to me, you got to have that drive and that work ethic, and we ask that in recruiting. Like I'll ask coaches when we're getting guys, and I don't care if they're portal guys, high school guys, junior college guys, like, how much are they in the gym? Do they get shots up? Are you having to drag them to the gym? Because if I got to motivate them to do those things, then I'm probably not the right coach, for those kids because I need guys that are going to be in the gym. I want to hear the ball bouncing, in the gym, knowing people are getting work up, knowing people want to do their part to help our team succeed. Because I know I'm going to do my part as a coach.
I think you're a great example of the fact that you don't have to have a great or a long player's resume to be a great coach and to move up and to get to higher levels. Because I think that's what a lot of people think is for you to become a great coach, you need to have this playing career to think back on all his experiences. But I think there's a misconception there that great players or people that have played are instantly great coaches. I think you see it all the time where maybe there's even more of a disconnect between guys that have played, at high levels, almost like they don't understand or they can't even put themselves in their players' shoes. They don't have that understanding, I guess. But I love the fact that you really do show that if you love the game and you're willing to work hard, man, you can make this happen. I would imagine, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit with the kind of guys you look for and what the questions you ask with recruiting, but that your story, your journey really affects the culture of your program. And so, in your opinion, how does culture drive performance? But also, I'd love for you to go into a little bit of what yours is like.
Culture, and you hear so many people say it's such a buzzword, and I don't really use the word culture in our locker room, and I think you got to have a standard, and I think you got to have expectations, and then I think you got to hold kids accountable to that. But the question I always want answered and want known is when someone watches my team play, what do they think of that team?
Hmm.
What do they see? Because that's to me really what culture is, and before I, keep diving into that, and I'm going to tell you just, over the years how I've formulated some thoughts and stuff with just various experiences. But I remember when I was an assistant, we were on the road in Colorado playing a D2 school, and we had a brand new team. We had a bunch of new guys that year, and it's one of it's the opening weekend classic that we're in, and we have a kid take a charge, big play, fast break. He takes a charge, slides into the backstop. As he took the charge, official actually made the correct call, which was good. Because we don't see that all the time. But on the film, when we went back and we're watching the tape, he takes the charge, and our four players are walking away from him, and three players from the other team help him up, help our own player up. And I just remember being so frustrated watching that, because in my head, and when I showed it to our head coach, he felt the same way. Is what kind of team are we right now? That our own players aren't even one. They're not celebrating success, because that
Hmm.
was charge is a big time play in college basketball, and I mean I don't care what level it is, a
Yeah.
charge is a big time play. But two, we don't have players running over there and picking their own teammate up. And so, when someone sees our team play, that's, what are they seeing? And on that day, they didn't see probably what we had envisioned as a staff, our team to be. So what was our culture that day? And I don't know the answer to that. And so, but we knew we had to fix it at that stage. We knew we had something to fix. And so, now that I've gotten older, and I use that as an example now, is that's what it makes me think, what do I want people to see when they see our team play? And to me, it starts with a culture of toughness. I want people to think our teams are tough. And, they're only going to see the things on the court right now. But if they're tough on the floor, I want them to be tough minded people, because adversity is going to hit even in life. And so are they going to be tough in life as well? And so, we talk about toughness. And so I'll use the word, because since you used it, I'll use it as, we want a culture of toughness to start. I want tough
Coach,
people.
first of all, I'm going to cut you off right there. I don't really enjoy the word culture either. And there's a legendary coach from Coach Fitch. He was at Birdville High School for 30 years, retired. And I asked him the question. He's like, 15, 20 years ago, we didn't even use that word, but it's always been there. Like, it's always been around. And so I also would rather say standards, pillars, the way that we show up every day. So, Coach, I don't want you to be throwing that word at me like I'm the one who loves that word.
I was just answering the question. But so to me, it starts with a culture of toughness.
Yeah.
And I want my team to be the toughest team on the floor, physically and mentally. Like, I want us to be tough, and we define that. I think you have to be able to define it. You have to hold kids accountable to that. Today's our first day of class here today. And, we met last night in the locker room, then we had a quick meeting again today. And, I'm talking and trying to get them ready, because we can't start until the fourth class day. And, when we start, I'm trying to get our returners, because this is my second year here now,
Yeah.
to help teach our new guys. And, last year, because everybody's new, my staff is new, my players are new, so I'm having to teach everything. So now I'm going, holy cow, I got, 10 assistant coaches now, because I got returners that can help teach it. But, to me, I don't allow guys to grab their knees in practice, because to me, it shows a sign of weakness. And, someone being tired. And to me, it's mental, like it's mental toughness, just not grabbing your knees. And so if a guy grabs their knees in practice, then we'll just get on the line, because I'll say, well, we must not be in good enough shape, at that stage. And so early, our returners will help police our new guys, for that. But that just, to me, I think you got to have small things like that can help define it as well, besides just things that you talk about as well. I want a culture of unselfishness. We like moving the ball. I want to share the basketball. Okay, well, that's unselfishness. All right, well, if you help your teammate up when he's on the ground, that's being unselfish. We were fourth in the country last year in community service. That's unselfish. So when you're talking about culture, I think it's not just the basketball piece of it. It's the everything that encompasses a program. And so we talk about being unselfish. We are talking about giving back to our community, because I always tell them, hey, we're going to give back to a community that gives to us. And, the challenge at Angelo State, when I got here, and it's something Coach Boone told me and something Chris Beard told me the day he called me to congratulate me because he coached here as well, is attendance. They all talked about attendance. They're like, look, it's going to be hard. And, it's never been just great and da-da-da-da. And so I convinced our guys last year, hey, if we give back to the community, if we're unselfish, if we give back and we're in the community and doing, they'll come support you. And I didn't know if they would or wouldn't, but I'm just trying to create the culture then of being unselfish, of giving back. Well, we led the conference in attendance last year, and I don't know.
Nice.
I don't know if it was the first time ever or first time in a long time, but we led the league in attendance. And I truly felt that because our guys gave back to the community gave back to us. And so that was a way we could teach unselfishness besides just passing the basketball,
Yeah.
because I want to be unselfish. I want to make the extra pass when it's time to make the extra pass. I want to make the right basketball play when it's time to make the right basketball play. If you don't, you're going to hear about it, and we're going to correct it because that goes back to accountability when you're creating that culture. And I don't think you can ever let up on that stuff, and that's the hard part when you are creating a quote unquote culture is the accountability part. I think there's a lot of good coaches out there, and coaches that, hey, they listen to a bunch of podcasts, they watch a bunch of tape, they go to clinics, and they're really basketball sharp, but maybe they're not as successful coaching wise. They may know their stuff, but they're not getting the success. And to me, are they holding their kids accountable? They know it, but are they making them do it? And I think accountability goes into that so much. And so for us, we have so many things, and I'm giving you examples of, grabbing your knees or doing community service and, or making the extra pass. And those are things we make our guys do. We're going to make you make the extra pass. We're going to make you, right now, if a kid falls on the ground in our program, like we had our guys, we're very fortunate. And this is part of us being a really good Division II, is we were able to have our whole team here for summer too. And so when the guys were playing pickup this summer, and this was the returners. This doesn't have to do with me anymore. Is when someone fell on the ground in pickup, the whole team goes and picks them up, and if they're not on the court, they still go and get a touch. And that's something that we started a year ago, but now it's carried on. So I can say, hey, that's part of our culture now because it's carried into it. And to me, that's something that's unselfish. We don't allow our guys to challenge our guys negatively or speak to them negatively on the floor.
Yeah.
So we always say, I'm going to be that person. And so we don't allow them to say things, ridiculous things to each other. I always tell them, like, hey, if your teammate turns it over, you're going to run over, you're going to pat them on the rear, and you're going to say, hey, let's get it back. And if they miss you, on a pass, there's a right and wrong way to say that. So, we're always trying to help kind of that stuff as well, because I think, to me, when you're talking about being unselfish, the hard thing is putting self aside. And so I may be mad about that turnover that you just had, but if I run over there and pat you on the rear and say, hey, let's get it back, then it goes back to team again. And that helps that kid understand, okay, I don't need to focus on the bad play. And then it also helps a kid shake it too, like a kid that just turned it over, or a kid that maybe airballed a shot or whatever it might be, or made a really bad play. Just hearing his teammates say, hey, you're okay, goes a long ways. And I think those are selfish acts. And so, those are kind of things that we do. And it's one of the things I said, when I took this job and I interviewed for this job, and then I did the press conference, and I heard Coach Wells, that's the former football coach at Texas Tech. And I'm a Texas Tech grad, so I'm a huge Tech football fan. Oh, you're from Baylor, so sorry. We stole your coordinator.
It's okay. It's okay.
I don't know if you follow him or not. Unbelievable. I love him. But anyways, Matt Wells said, hey, we're going to love our guys hard. And that's what we do in our program. And to me, that's also the accountability part. I mean, we coach our guys hard. We push them. We challenge them. But we have a relationship with them. Our guys know, hey, we're going to love on them, and we're going to take care of them. We're going to be in the locker room cutting up with them after a hard practice. And I try to get guys to understand, hey, when practice is over, man, it's over. I'm done too, and I don't carry it with me, and I try not to carry it with me. I try to just leave it in practice.
Yeah.
Because it's our time to fix stuff, and so when we're talking culture, I can't go around and be mad at a kid all day if I'm talking about being unselfish to them. I got to be able to put self aside because now I got to go back to being a leader. I got to go back to being a coach, being someone that loves them, being someone that helps them in that. So I think a lot of it goes back on us too. Is like if you want that culture to be a certain way, then you and your staff have to be that certain way. You can't say you want certain things in that locker room, but then you're doing something differently as a coach. And I think you see that from time to time with certain coaches.
Yeah.
And it's if I wanted to be really good at defense, I can't just say, "Hey, Matt, we're going to be really good in defense," and then never work on it and just do shooting drills all day. It's just not going to. What are we doing to work on it? What
Yeah.
are we doing? And so that's where, to me, when you set standards, when you have expectations, but then you hold them accountable, I think those are things that help build culture, and then that culture bleeds on the floor. And so when you watch our team on game night, if you see a guy hit the floor, you're seeing four guys sprint over and pick him up on game night. You're seeing if someone makes a big play, the bench and everybody else is celebrating success. And part of the question of how do you create that? What do you do to create that? That's probably the part B of this question
Sure.
that you had. And when I was at Northwestern, I told you we took over an 8-win team, but I mean, the previous coach had won 20 games the year before. So in my mind, I said, hey, it can be done. Somebody's done it here before. And so, now you're taking over an 8-win team, and then we win 10. And we had to keep that team, and we brought in a few players, and we go from 8 to 10, which was the lowest I'd ever won. So that was hard for me too. But okay, now how do you create that culture that you're trying to create? What do you do? These kids haven't won. And so when we built that team to win 20 games my last year, we had to recruit all those players. Okay, we recruited guys from winning programs because I think teaching how to win is very difficult sometimes to kids as opposed to getting kids from winning programs that have already been taught those things. We got that. But then when we were in our preseason, you're going to laugh at this. That year, every Friday in our preseason, we celebrated success. We went in the locker room like we had won, and we started saying we're going to win the week, and then we're going to celebrate that on Friday. So Friday in the preseason, we put the music on and we celebrated like we had just won a game on Friday. And I was trying to get them to understand the feeling and how it felt, to find success and what it was like to be a good team and what it was like to be rewarded for the hard work that you put in for that week of preseason. Because it may have been a really hard week in the preseason, but okay, let's go celebrate it now. You made it. Let's celebrate it. And, and I think that we talk about that all the time. I think you hear a lot of coaches say celebrate success, and they talk about it. But again, I'm one of those, well, let's figure out how we can get some
let's
stuff.
Practice it. Yeah.
Do it. So we did that there. And, so I wasn't shocked when we won 20 games that year because I thought we did the things to do it.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here.
I'm not a book guy. I told you that. I'm a podcast guy. I got a 4-year-old at home, and he runs around everywhere, so it's kind of hard to read. But I brought a book. It's called High Hopes by Gary Barnett and Coach Cooper that I worked for at WT. When I took that job, and it was a difficult job going in, and just I've never had to kind of figure out how to win like that.
Yeah.
Get just won 8, and obviously we want to, as coaches, do better if we can. And so he tells me, "Hey, read this book, and I want you to read it going into this year." And that was the year we won 20 games. So I read the book going into that season because he kept telling me about this book, and I'm like, "All right." So Gary Barnett won a national title at Colorado as an assistant coach for football, and he takes the Northwestern job in the Big Ten. And at the time, they were just one of the worst programs in the country. And he blurts out when they introduce him as a coach to all the students and everybody else, I'm going to take purple to Pasadena. And he basically says, I'm going to take Northwestern to the Rose Bowl. And then when he left that, he just says, man, how am I going to get there now? And so he uses analogy of a puzzle. That's what I'm going to share right now, is when I'm talking culture here. I think we all know what we want our culture to be. So when you buy a puzzle, you know what that puzzle is because you see it on the face of the cover. But when you open the box, what is it? It's chaos.
Yeah, it's a mess. Yeah.
Okay, so then how can you build it to that picture? You start by building the borders. And what do those borders represent? And for me, when I took that job, and then when I took this job, I talked to my staff about that. And it starts by building your staff. It starts, for us in college with recruiting, and you start labeling the border of how you want to accomplish that puzzle, to become the picture that you want it to be. And so this book was really good for me to read because he fails at it first, and he talks about building that program because he has a bad year his first year, has a bad year his second year, thinks the third year they're turning the corner, and they're like 3-3, and he thinks, okay, we're about to turn the corner, and then they lose like 6 straight games, and they go into that fourth year, and he has a senior in that third year team, and that senior tells him, Coach, we were part of the problem, our class was, and now that we're gone, you're going to get it going. And that fourth year, he takes them to the Rose Bowl when that class left. But it was just him just continually build that culture, build that culture, build that culture. And when it got set, because he wasn't changing what he was doing, but that culture got set, that success came from it. And so I just thought it was a really good book. I took a lot away from it, and I shared it with my staff and just kind of the things I took away on, hey, how are we going to build this at Northwestern? How are we going to build this at Angelo State? When we got here, it was such a chaotic time with the portal.
Yeah.
I took the job here, and there was 2 guys on the roster, and the rest were in the portal. And so I just, hey, you go back to the what am I doing here? So we spend the first 2 weeks re-recruiting guys back into our program. And so I lose 2 weeks of regular recruiting because of that. So now we're behind the 8 ball. And so now it's okay, I need a bunch of players in my first year at Angelo State. And and they're I don't want to say pressure because I didn't feel any, but I also felt like I'm in this great job. Cinco did such a great, they just won 20 plus games, went to the national tournament. I'm going to win 5 games my first year and get fired. That's how I felt. And so when we're recruiting, we're like, okay, we need some winners, we had the job 6 days. And I'm telling you, I didn't know what I was doing. But there was a guy on our team, and I said, we are in our recruiting list, and I said, we got to have him. I said, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what this team's going to look like, but we have to have him. And he was a Division I transfer that won a national championship in junior college. And he was just a winner. I mean, he's just one of those kids. He does everything you ask. He's a point guard. He's a leader. And so here I am. I don't know what we're doing, but I told our staff, we got to get him. And so my assistant and I, we do 3 campus tours 3 days in a row. We don't even know the campus. We got to have a visit now. I'm flying this kid in. I can't even point at buildings and tell him what. So we do these campus tours. We bring the kid in, and we just sell him a vision. And I think in recruiting and coaching and your culture, it's like that puzzle. You have a vision, and we're trying to get him to buy in and believe into our vision.
Yeah.
And that kid does. He buys into our vision, and a couple of days later, he signs with us. And I felt good because I was like, okay, we got a winner. And we got guys that's in the program. They've won before. We've added a key piece in him as a winner who's won a national championship. So he's won at a high level. He knows what it takes. Now we got to go get some more winners. So, we did that. We pieced it together, and we had an awesome season. And I'm telling you, it's one that I dang sure did not expect. I can tell you that right now because it was an unbelievable ride. But I'll tell you the hard part, and I know I'm rambling for a while too.
No, you're good.
But when we're talking about culture, I think you start getting into vision, which leads down another road as well. And I just got done talking to my team about this last night in our first meeting. Is I thought last year, because it was my first year, I got all these new players, I got a new staff, and we're talking buy-in. I think as coaches, we all talk about buy-in.
Yeah.
It takes success for people to buy in. We had to win games, and then kids really started buying in to the style of play, to our identity, to what we wanted to be. They started really buying into our vision. So the trick to me now, we're starting a new year. We finished second in the league, and I asked them, I said, if we would have bought into that vision, bought into that, hey, we're buying in early to that identity, would we have finished first in the league? Because it took success for our guys to truly buy in. And so to me, it's okay, how can you create belief without evidence? And I think when you're talking culture, that's what it is you're trying to create belief without evidence. And you're trying to get guys to understand, hey, we can be tough, we can be unselfish. Those are the characteristics for ours. We can give back. We can be great people. We can be great students. We try to challenge our guys academically, athletically, socially. We try to touch just a little bit spiritually. Every Wednesday for us, we do a devotional. We have our FCA chaplain. He comes in and does a 15-minute devotional on Wednesdays. And I tell our guys, like, hey, we're going to do this. And I don't know if it's important to you right now, but as you get older, one day this is going to be important. And I'm hoping the fact that we expose you to it,
Yeah.
help it become more important later.
Yep.
And so we try to at least touch on it spiritually as well, in that. But all we're trying to do is create belief without evidence, and I feel like if you can do that, then you can find early success. And to me, it's like any season. If you get off to a great start, you're probably going to have a pretty good year, barring an injury or something like that. So, I think that's the challenge for all of us as coaches is how do you create belief without evidence? Why does it take winning games to create that? And so what else are you doing? Are you doing community service? Are you giving back? Are holding kids accountable? And I think you can find wins. I think you can celebrate success without the win. That's what we practice in the locker room at Northwestern. We didn't have to win to practice celebrating how to win. And so to me, I don't know. I know that was a long answer on that, but I do think the locker room is very important. I do think your identity of what you want your team to be and how you want people to view it is important. I do think if you understand the picture of that puzzle, then as a coach, if you understand what you want it to be, it's easier to get to that point.
A lot to unpack there. And for somebody that doesn't like the word culture, you really did a great job of, but I understand what you mean by that. And I do. I loved how you shared it. I think it's really powerful to connect your standards to be more than basketball, connect it to something outside of basketball. Because I think players see through that. If it's just transactional, like do this, you'll be a better player, we'll win more games, have more success, but it's just in that moment. I don't know, maybe you'll get some buy-in like you talked about, but man, make those standards transformational. This is going to not just transform your life, but we're going to affect others' lives. Like that mission is bigger. And I think that's one that people can really buy into. So I love that. I do want to go back to toughness, because I think a question I've always wondered about, like I'm at a school where 98% of these kids, their lives have been pretty darn good. Not perfect, but the fact that they can be here, they can afford to be here, like not a lot of adversity, for the most part. And I've also had teammates in the past, my senior year, one of our co-captains, he was 6'8", huge arms, everybody thought he should just be this bruiser, but man, he was our best 3-point shooter. He really wanted no point of that. And people would get on him about his lack of toughness. But I just thought, man, he's our best shooter. Let's just be happy about that. But my question is toughness just something people have, or is there actually something that you can instill in players?
I think I'm a believer you can instill it in players. I think if you look at our team and our teams over the years, and I think it's all college basketball teams, and I think it's the unique thing about college, even going back to when you played, there's so many different types of people that come from different backgrounds in that locker room. And what are you trying to do? You're trying to find a common goal. And for us, it's, I tell them, unfortunately, it's got to be done the way I want it. There's 15 of you. If you try to do it 15 different ways, we're not going to be successful. But if you do it one way, if you do it the Angelo State way, then we're going to have a chance, So, but I do think, even in your case, with the type of kids that you have right there, you can instill it if we're talking basketball, you can do it with basketball. We have drills in our program, and I'm not just talking, hey, we're going to do a tough rebounding drill and try to beat up on each other. We have drills that mentally challenge our kids, and again, I was very fortunate to work at WT for as long as I did with Coach Cooper. He really impacted probably a lot of my thoughts, as I progressed throughout my career. But we had a drill, and it was called 40-second shutout, and it was a 4-on-4 drill. And we wouldn't touch that drill until we covered how to guard screens, how to guard ball screens, how to guard on the ball, what we were exactly looking for. But you had to have everything covered. So all the teaching had to be done. And then we do 40-second shutout. So maybe a week into practice at that stage. But when that drill started and that 40 seconds rolled and you inbounded the ball, and it's a half court drill to that player, then everything had to be perfect. If your positioning was wrong on the ball, if you're forcing the wrong way, boom, we'd stop it, reset back to 40.
Yeah.
Days he wanted it to be harder, and you're in midline and you weren't in a stance, he'd just stop it. Matt, you're not in stance. Reset back to 40. And you would be so tired in that drill because you're trying to do it right. I mean, you really are. You're locking in. Kids are down in a stance. They're competing at a high level. And then the shot goes up. Well, you forget to rebound. So an offensive rebound comes. Boom, back to 40. You reset it again.
Yeah.
You'll see mentally kids just start to snap. I mean, you just see it. So then it goes back to the thing we were talking about a minute ago. And this is, to me, how we help teach some of this stuff is we start challenging the other guys. Why don't you go up to them, pat them on the rear, say, hey, you're okay. Are you doing those things in that drill? And are you helping your teammate get through that drill? And then if I got a weak link, and we'll do that at times, we'll put 3 really good guys out there and a weaker guy out there. Am I going to compete and play even harder to make up for the fact that I have a lesser guy on my team?
Yeah.
Or we're going to be in this drill for a while. And I'm just using that drill as an example.
Well,
but
yeah.
I think get guys to raise their level. And, that's what we're trying to do when we talk about toughness. I'm not talking about going in there and just knocking somebody out and being as physical as you can be. To me, toughness is, okay, the game's on the line. When we got to get this stop are all 5 guys going to block out?
Yeah. Do they all execute, right?
Do what they need to do, at
Yeah.
that moment. Are they mentally tough enough to understand their assignments and complete it? On offense, are they going to execute? Are they going to screen? Are they going to make the right pass? Are they going to make the right cut? Are they going to do those things on offense? Because then that's, to me, toughness as well. And we talk about toughness on both sides of the ball. And I think a lot of coaches only talk about toughness on defense. We talk about being tough on offense. Are you going to set body-to-body screens? Are you going to touch somebody in a day where the game is changing, where the referees don't want this game to be as physical anymore? But are you gonna be tough by doing your assignment and going to crash for an offensive rebound? To me, that's toughness. And so we start to define what toughness really is and what it means in our program. And that goes back to accountability then.
Yeah.
When we're talking about that. And so to me, if toughness and you're trying to instill it, and it can be as simple as crashing the offensive glass. If you can hold them accountable to that, then all of a sudden you're instilling toughness on the offensive end just as much as you are defense. And that's why I said, to me, a lot of coaches think that toughness just comes on the defensive end.
Yeah.
And it's on both ends. We try to have toughness in our program overall. And that's why I said it like that. And I didn't just say defensive toughness for us. And for us, we want to be good defensively. There's no doubt about it. But I want to be tough on offense. I want our bigs to position themselves to run to, we put an X on the floor at the rim, and we always say run to the X, run to the front of the rim and spin and pin, go make contact, spin and pin. To me, that's where you're going to veer off and run to the block and not do your job. So I do think you can have toughness on both ends of the floor. And I think if you're holding them accountable, then you're helping instill that into your program. And, I don't think you have to yell and scream and everything else to get that out of them. You can. At times I do. And I'm an aggressive coach at times, and I don't have a problem admitting that, because we get the right guys in our program that like to be coached. That's why I said we're going to love them hard.
Yeah.
But I think if you have a relationship with that player and you show them you care, then you're going to be able to push on them a little bit harder, but I think you coach everybody differently. We talk about it all the time. I've heard some of your podcasts, and I've heard smarter coaches than me even say on your podcast, you can't coach everybody the same. And we try not to, we don't coach everybody the same. Now we're going to hold everybody accountable. We're going to have a standard. We're going to have an expectation and hold them to those things, but I don't have to coach everybody the same.
Man, I do love the idea that toughness isn't just physicality. And I think you're right on the money. I think that's what people think is we've got a tough team. That means they use their hands a lot. They hit people hard. And, well, we do have fouls. So you got to be really smart with the level of physicality that you're playing with. But to me, I do think it can be instilled. And I think it's more of that you set your standards, but you hold their feet to the fire. Like you've been saying, you hold them accountable. Where I think you lose toughness is when you allow slippage. When if toughness to us is all four guys crashing, everybody but the shooter, and we don't hold them accountable to that, then we're not that tough. We're allowing slippage. And so, yeah, that you're right on the money. I mean, whether it's you by yourself or you have a couple assistants that around, we are the ones that hold the line because kids naturally, if there's rules in place, they want to see how close. I mean, when kids are little and you say that's hot, they're going to get their hands so close to really see, is it hot? They're going to test those boundaries. So we hold that line. But then going back, I think a little bit to the celebrations that you created, I think that's where you reinforce those standards even more is when they do hold them, when you're holding them to the fire and they come through, man, you celebrate the crap out of that. And it just becomes more and more like they want to be a part of that way. They want to see that success and it breeds more. So I love what you said about toughness there.
It becomes contagious.
That's right. Yeah.
And I do think, and when you're talking, whether it's toughness, whether it's, whatever it might be, and we're talking about celebrating success and everything else, I think you got to acknowledge it. I think when they do it right, you got to acknowledge it. You got to, we're talking about accountability, and a lot of times accountability is when a kid does something incorrect. Are you fixing it? Are you holding, you said feet to their fire, feet to the fire. But you also said, hey, celebrate success. We have to acknowledge when they do it right, because if toughness is, which what we're talking about right now, is something you're looking for, they don't know what exactly we're looking for as coaches. So do we have clarity in what we're saying? And
no doubt. A coach walking up and down the side, we got to be tough today, or communication. I hear that all the time. We got to talk. Well, what do you really want? Like, do you want mindless chatter? You just want them to be like the outfielder, or the infielder, just making chants, bad about, hey, like, no, we want them to know specifically what to say. So I've always asked players, like, why are players quiet? And they'll give me different reasons. And I would say the main reason is that they don't truly know what they're supposed to say. So when we, as coaches, when we define it, when we articulate it clearly, then we give them the ability to be great communicators or do whatever we're asking them to do. But to just say things without having those clear standards defined, man, I think you're really going to feel some friction from your players, and you're going to get frustrated. They're going to be frustrated, but it all comes back to what we're teaching them.
Well, I think you'll laugh, but early, the first few weeks, we're getting ready to kick off here, and you're doing a lot of correcting. I mean, guys are going to screw up. That's just the start of every year. It's ugly basketball. Everyone says November basketball is ugly, and so there's a lot of correcting going on, but I have to tell our guys, like, I will stop practice some days and I will point out that I told one kid, good job, that I did this, I point out my positives to them early in the year, because I do think as coaches, sometimes all the player hears is the negative, and to them, correction is negative. And I don't always understand. And that's what I try to communicate that early. Me correcting you is not something negative. It's not, it's us trying to get better as a team. And so I have to at times catch myself early in the season, and I will literally stop practice and I will point out everything positive that I've said when I acknowledge someone's good play, whether it's a good pass. You've heard me say it today, so-and-so good pass, so-and-so good charge, so-and-so good block out, whatever. And I said, but all you guys hear is the negative, and I try to get them to understand that, hey, there is positive things being said, but, we all know the negative outweighs the positive. And so I do think, when we're talking about reaffirming things, toughness, for example, right now, is we also got to acknowledge to them and get them to understand, hey, I'm telling you when you're doing it right. I'm celebrating it with you. I'm celebrating the success with you when you do it right. You're just thinking right now because I correct you all the time, I'm only doing it in a negative way.
Yeah.
I do think that's a fine line we walk as coaches. Sometimes is especially early in the year because there is so much correction that you lose kids because they just think you're so negative all the time.
Yeah, we don't want our players to feel beat down. And you're right, that line is important that we stay on it.
So I mean, I don't know. It's just, to me, everything we do, there has to be clarity with our kids. And I just think we overcomplicate it sometimes as coaches. And then if it's overcomplicated to us, then it is to them. And so how can we just give clarity to our guys? And that's everything we've talked about right now, you and I. And it's been, hey, can we define this a certain way? You talked about the question was culture. Okay, well, how are we defining what's the definition of it? So you say a lot of people say culture.
Man, I think today's society, because of these players, because of the phones, they want to know why. You and I probably, when we were younger, just tell me what to do. Yes, sir, I'll do it. I mean, you and I talked a little bit about the coach that I played for 3 years, Dave Bliss. We didn't question him. Right. We just were told what to do. We said, yes, sir. And if we could say yes, sir, and actually do it, our lives were easy. If not, it went the other way. But I think there is more of a, players want to know why. And part of the reason is because they can find any answer they want in 5 seconds on their phone. So for us just to come across and say, just do what I'm telling you. Why, coach? Just do what I'm telling. No, I think the teaching aspect of it has to come through. So like when you talked about, we're not going to bend over and grab our shorts, I think you have to explain why. Because if not, they think that bending over shorts is just weakness. Or sometimes coaches will say, I don't want you to bend over because, stand up, you can breathe more. Well, if you watch The Last Dance, Michael Jordan's own, personal coach trainer told him to bend over and grab his shorts. He said, because you can breathe fine. I want you to rest a little bit more. Like, actually, grabbing the shorts could make your life a little bit easier as a player. But why do we not do it, guys? Because we don't want to show weakness. Bending over, for the majority of players out there, makes you look like you're tired, you can't go anymore. So we're not going to rest like that. But the why behind it is huge, right?
Well, and that's from day one, and it's something we talked about in recruiting with our guys. It's something we talked about this summer. I completely agree with your statement, is we say, hey, we're going to tell you to do things. We're always going to tell you why. And if you don't know why, you come knock on my door and you can ask, and I'm going to explain it. I'm never going to make you do something to do it. I always have a reason for asking you to do certain things. And I do think in coaching, when we're talking about clarity a second ago, if kids understand why they're doing something, then it's easier to get them to actually do it. They're not going to be as defiant as times. Yeah. And they're not actually being defiant on purpose sometimes. They just, if they understand it more, and it goes to a scout, like we talk about our scout stuff, and we hit the scout, film, paper scout, walk, I mean, you name it. We hit it about every different angle you can hit a scout. And the reason why is everybody learns differently.
Sure.
So if I'm going to hold them accountable to the scout, then I better present the information to them in a way that they understand it. And guess what? Every kid learns differently. So I better present it a bunch of different ways when I'm presenting that scout. And so that's why we do it in so many different ways. But I think it goes back to your statement of, if kids understand the why, then it is easy to hold them accountable. And then I also think when you hold them accountable, they're not as frustrated because they clearly know why they messed up. And if
no doubt,
why I messed up, then they also start learning, here's how I can fix it. And then I think other teammates can help teach them how to fix it, because then maybe,
especially when there's a common language, right? Other teammates are more willing to jump in when everybody is saying the same thing. I think that comes back to our assistants too. We all have to be careful as a coaching staff of not using 4 or 5 different ways to say the same thing. We have to have a clear language that our program uses, so that, and I love the word you keep using, clarity. And that when we have that clarity, I think it allows for correction to not be criticism when they know the why and we're very clear with it.
No, and I agree. And like last year, again, when we just got here, it's new staff just as much as new players. And the language of what we teach is so important to me because I think as a staff, you have to present a united front. You all have to be on the same page. You all have to use the same verbiage when you're on the court to have that clarity that we're speaking of right now. And so we take so much time early as a staff that we will get together. We plan every practice together an hour before we go out there, sometimes even longer. But especially when I have a new staff, we carve out time where we can actually walk down to the floor while we're planning practice, and we'll talk about verbiage, and we'll talk about, okay, here's how we say this, here's how we say this. And I'll even ask my staff, okay, here's what I say and how I've said it, here's the words that I use. What have you heard? What do you like? And if it's something that sounds better to me or makes more sense for our guys to understand, then I've got no problem with change. And that's where I'm saying, I think as coaches, you also got to be able to step back and go, okay, there may be a better way to do it.
Yeah.
And I've got to be okay with that. And so, I do think the things that we say, presenting that united front as a staff, having the same verbiage, having verbiage that kids understand, it's important because then as players understand, then players can help players. And this is going to go right back to the culture again. But then you create that player driven locker room.
Yeah.
And
And it's
just
funny how it usually always circles back. Like, I don't care what question we're talking about, it does go back, and we'll just say to the standards, pillars, how you show up every day of your program. But, for those coaches that might be like me at the high school world where all my coaches are part-time, they're coming from jobs that they're full-time jobs, and they're giving up their time because at Faith, they love the Lord, they love kids, and they love basketball, right? Like, so those are the three things I'm kind of looking. Oh, and they don't need money. That's the fourth thing. And they have a lot of time. That's the fifth thing. So very small circle, but they're coming in. I think one piece of advice that I've learned over the years is to allow my part-time assistants for the first few practices of the year to be quiet, like literally just to more observe. Because I was on a staff, this was more summer ball years ago, where the team had already been going, and I got in there, and I remember I'm standing there just kind of taking it all in on underneath the basket next to the head coach, and he leans over and says, "You need to jump in now." I remember thinking, what do you want me to say? Like, what I'm learning names. What scheme term, your terminology. But so that was, to me, was an approach of, like, it was kind of setting me up for failure, setting me up to miscommunicate, to confuse these players, to put us farther back. So I love, I mean, I'm a little envious of the time, but yeah, as a college coach, like, that's what you guys do. So the time that you guys spend, that's why I think college coaches, you guys are some of the best because of the time you spend with your staff, and how you develop what you guys are doing as a program. But for us, yeah, give your assistants a little bit of time to learn the players, learn the culture. And I want to go into something else, Coach, if you don't mind, because
I want to add to that real quick. I want
oh,
to
go
add,
ahead. Yeah.
you know, when I was applying for this job, and they said, "Hey, what does the first 30 days look like?" And the first thing I said is, "I'm going to look, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to lean." And they hadn't heard that before, and they said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, I think I'm new here. Obviously, if I get this job, you guys know how this is supposed to go, and so I'm gonna look and see what's going on. I'm gonna listen to our players and kind of hear, what are they looking for, in a program, how do they want this thing to be." And I said, lean, because I'm going to lean on you guys, because you guys are the ones that have been here, as administrators, and so I'm going to lean on you guys for advice and things like that as well. And when we're talking about those assistants, and I was an assistant once, and so I try to always think about what it was like when I was an assistant, and that's what I tell our staff all the time. And I want them to come in and ask questions, and we say that all the time. And if I can find an old practice and I can video a drill and I can text it to them, or we can talk about it on the floor, in my office, on the board, whatever it is, to try to help get them to understand it a little bit. then that makes all our lives better,
Yeah.
But I think the things that we also do when we're planning practice, I early with a new staff, I tell them exactly where they're going to stand. And I tell them exactly what their job needs to be in that practice. And I mean, I have a grad assistant who early in the year, I literally have him stand under the basket and we put a big blue line right down midline. And he's just reminding guys to get to midline. That's his job. And he knows exactly what to do. So then he's getting comfortable and talking because, as GAs, I think they're new and they don't know when to talk and they don't know what to say. And I think it's our job as coaches. I think as head coaches, we should teach assistants. I think as assistants, we should teach our grad assistants. I think as grad assistants, we should teach our managers. And that's how we're going to continue to have even better coaches in this profession because we're taking the time to teach people underneath us. And so for me, like I start with our grad assistants with something easy like midline, because I know it's something they know what it's supposed to be. They know where that kid's supposed to be. They can sit there and echo midline, but their voice starts getting heard, and our assistants, when I hire them, like we start positioning them on the board. Here's in this drill, I need you here. I need you here. I need a GA underneath the basket. I'm going to be standing over here, but I'm probably going to be all over the place, and normally I am all over the place. But they know exactly where they're supposed to be at. And then I'll even say, okay, we talked about offensive rebounding earlier. I had one assistant. I said, okay, you're going to watch the 4s and 5s crash. And I tell the other one, you're going to watch the 2s and 3s crash when the shot goes up. So they're not having to watch all of it. They can focus on a smaller piece then and there and break it down. And then when we're watching film as a staff together, then I will watch it first a lot of times on my own because I may watch it that evening or whatever it might be. And then when we watch it as a staff, I may point stuff out in that film session to my staff on, hey, you could have done this, or I could have had you over here. This would have helped me
So you're
more.
kind of coaching them up. Yeah.
Coaching them just like you do your players.
Yeah.
If you want to get out of them what you do, and I'm very blessed here. Is I feel like we have the best staff in the country with the guys we have. Mark Rutledge, Connor Moore, Grant Makita are the three best I've worked with, and to me, we talk about success. That's success in that office right next door to me because those guys are the ones running this thing right now, and they're great. They ask a lot of questions. They want it done the way that I want it done. And the thing that, when I took this job, I told you my parents were living here. My GA came with me from Northwestern to here. So he's been with me. So he actually knew what was going on. But my two assistants, I mean, we come down to San Angelo. We're staying at my parents' house for like the first month and a half, all three of us. And we're bachelors. I mean, we don't have our spouse here. And so for the first month, we're just getting to know each other, which was awesome to me. And I think, for you, it's a little bit harder when you have part-time assistants to form that relationship. And we're talking about with players, but I think you should have it with your staff as well.
That's good.
Back to that united front in practice. Like, are y'all on the same page? Is your terminology the same? Are you coaching kids in that same direction that I want it done?
Yeah.
We're spending that time and we know each other. You're going to eventually get to where you know what I want. I don't even have to say it anymore. And I just think there's so much into that. And that makes yours harder. And I dealt with the part-time deal at Oklahoma City, and it's just very difficult not there, to plan practice and everything else, and I know our guys would get frustrated because that year I took on so much, but I was just like, well, you guys don't even know what I want right now. So
but for a micromanager, it's not the worst thing in the world. So, but I'm very thankful for those guys. And to your point, though, there's probably more that I can do to direct them, to give them a clear purpose during that practice. So I think I needed to hear that. I appreciate that.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
One more question before the speed round. So this one, I feel like it's interesting to talk with you because, I would say Coach, would you say you're probably halfway through your coaching career? Or are you still feel like you're on the beginning part? Where would you say you are, assuming you do this for a long time?
That's a great question. For me, I told you it's exciting for me, and having that team meeting last night, and looking at those kids, it's exciting, the journey we're getting ready to
Yeah.
get. And I've always told myself when that feeling stops,
Yeah.
when the feeling of walking up to this gym and it being special to me stops, that's kind of when I've told myself I probably need to stop doing it, because I pour so much into this, and I'm very fortunate. I have a wife that she gets it because she's played, she's coached it, and everything else. So she understands how much as coaches we pour into, our teams and our universities and our athletic departments, and she lets me do my job, and it's, as we were getting ready for our meeting, yesterday, um, we weren't meeting till nighttime, and I'm at the office by 1 o'clock, and she gets that. She understands that I'm
That's
trying to
awesome.
up for that, and so I'm very fortunate with that. So, for me, I'm going to do this as long as I can until I get tired of doing it, so I don't have a good answer for that. I think it's going
Well,
to be
okay. So let me tell you why I asked that, because the question of what would you do differently if you could start over in coaching is typically one that guys that are 30, 40 years into it, they're kind of looking back now. But I do think with your experience and that interesting journey that you have, that I'm really excited to hear the answer to this. So what would you do differently if you could go back and start over?
So I'm in year 19. Okay, I'll tell you that first off, is it's year 19 for me, and year I believe 9, yeah, 9 as a head coach now. And I just think for me, when I look back at my path and my journey, and I told you about my wife and stuff, and how fortunate I am with her being able to do as much as I want to do and pour in the way I do. I look back and there's not a thing I would change, because I don't think I'd be where I'm at. I don't think that I'd be the type of coach I am without the unique journey I've been on. And I think if I look back and I tried to change something, would it lead me being at Angelo State? And I told you that's where I want to be. And so for
Yeah.
me, that's a hard question to want to change something. I'm not the son of a famous coach. I didn't play for a big time coach. If you look at my resume, there's no, Power Five coaches on my resume. I've had to work for what I've wanted, and and that's why for me, I think that journey has also shaped me as a coach. And I think if I try to change something, then I'm maybe not shaped the way I want to be right now. And
Yeah.
I'm comfortable in my skin. I'm comfortable with the way I coach. I'm comfortable with how I treat my players and the relationships I have with those kids. And, to me, I told you from the start, this is all about them. I mean, the players are the reason I'm here right now. And, I want to be able to give back to them. And I want, I tell them all the time, in 10 years, I'm hoping you're donating back to this program because you had such a great experience playing for us here. And that's a big thing for me. I want them to have a championship experience playing for us. And to me,
Yeah.
that's degree, and that's winning rings. And I'm hoping we can get to a stage where we're winning the ring, but I dang sure know we can get every player in our program graduated, and so I just think when I look at this journey and I look at what I've done, it has been very unique. I don't think there's a lot of people that have a story like I do, um, because I've done it the hard way,
Yeah.
and one thing that's never changed, I was at work at 7:05 this morning, and I'm still here right now with you, and I'm always going to be that guy. I want to be the first one here. I want to be the last one to leave, because I want to pour everything into this while I have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
Because I also know 19 years ago when I started as a volunteer, I remember how grateful I was for that opportunity, because I was smart enough, and I said this, to understand the chance I had to be in college coaching. 19 years later, I still understand the opportunity I have and how important it is for me, and that I'm going to give it everything I have every single day. I owe it to Angelo State. Angelo State took a chance on me.
Yeah.
President Hall, James Reed took a chance on me. And so, why do I do it? It's for them.
Yeah.
I want them to know, hey, I hired the right guy. I want them to know that I'm going to work my tail off for them. I'm going to work my tail off for my kids, my players, and make this experience as special as possible to them. And all roads for me wanted to lead to Angelo State, and I hope I'm here for 30 years. I hope I'm here as long as they'll allow me to coach here. I don't know. We'll see what this year looks like, but, I want to be here as long as they
Yeah.
do. That's why I think I'm very unique in that I think we all have an endpoint to where we go, hey, I want to coach here. And that's different for every coach. You
Yeah.
know, young coaches right now, it may be, hey, I want to coach at Duke someday, or I want to coach at Kansas someday, or I want to coach at, University of Texas someday. I don't know what it is. It may be Cedar Hill, for high school coaches. It may be Kimball, and I don't know what people want go for. But for me, it was here. And I'm one of the unique people that, hey, I had this school in mind where I wanted to be, and I got here. How many people say, hey, I want to coach at this school, and they actually get to that school? And that's why I say this is such a unique story for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
that when you ask that question, I'm just like, nothing. There's nothing. I got a wife who loves what I do, who allows me to do my job the way I want to do it. My journey allowed me to meet her, and have an awesome son that I hope he likes basketball. I don't know. He's got two parents that like basketball, so I don't know
You just
right
put
now.
that ball in you just keep putting that ball in his hand. He'll be all right.
No, but if you change something, does the road lead to Angelo State with my wife?
Yeah.
Because that's who I wanted to lead here with, because she's a coach's wife, and I'll tell you, I'm so thankful for her. I probably don't say it enough to her, but she's made a lot of sacrifices to be here with me, and I'm glad it's worked out for her. She wanted to stay in athletics. She's, assistant AD for compliance here at Angelo State. So she's still in athletics, which is awesome for me. But, let's say we don't meet. What does her coaching career look like? Because obviously she was having way more success than I was.
She's the best coach of the family.
That's it. So the sacrifices she made to allow me to do this, and, it's who I wanted to be on this journey with. And
Yeah.
so this road has led me to here, and that's why I said I hope I'm here for 30 years, and I want to be here for a long time. I've built a house, and it's the house that her and I wanted, and it's where we want to be. It's where we want to raise our kid. And, for me, that's why the journey has been so unique. And I go back to that: is what coach do you know is at the place he actually wanted to be when he started down that path?
Oh yeah, you're the first one. You're the first one who's been able to say that. And a lot of coaches are very thankful where they are, but to say that they had a plan for that, being at that place a long time ago. And I thank you for sharing that. I think that is not that anybody's answer is wrong, but that is the answer, right? Is that nothing? Because I tell my players all the time, like in basketball, as a young kid and a high school player and a college player, I have zero regrets. I feel like I maxed out, or as one coach said, I gassed out. Like I met my potential there. But then in my 20s, in my personal life, I made a lot of mistakes and lived really poorly for a long time. But then, around the age of 30, dramatic shift, dramatic change in my life allowed me to meet my wife, Jana, and then to get this job at Faith. And it's one of those deals where, looking back, yeah, some of those times, would I love for situations to be different, decisions not to be made? Sure. But at the same time, no, I don't change anything because of where I'm sitting right now at the school I'm at, getting to do this talk with you. I mean, how did things change? And so I appreciate that answer.
No, I'm a podcast guy. I was saying, and one of my favorite podcasts is one that PJ Fleck is in.
Oh,
This AFCA coaching clinic that all the football coaches go to, and PJ Fleck speaks at it. And and I'm going to quote him on part of what you said, because I just think, and I try to. We all steal from everybody. That's the great thing about coaching, is we all try to steal from everybody. But he says, failing is growth, but failure is quit. And I thought that was profound,
yeah.
because we've all failed. I mean, we have all failed. I'm just telling you this right now. But have you grown from it?
Yeah.
Oh, because that's part of your journey. Failing is part of your journey. It's part of the growth to get to where you're at. If you quit, that's when you would be a failure. But I use the term you just did. You power through. And has it been a glorious ride and just the easiest ride for me? No. I mean, I was making $0 my first 2 years. I went as a second year guy, as a volunteer GA, I was lucky. We had a team mom that worked in the education department. And she hired me to grade papers for some online classes. So I made $800 a month and $400 went to rent. I thought I was the richest guy in the world at the time, for getting to do this. But it hasn't been easy, and it's not for a lot of coaches, and I think you fail, and I think you grow from it, and I think you fail again, and then you grow from it again. But you're never a failure until you quit from it, until it actually knocks you down and you quit. You're never a failure. And we're going to fail. Our kids are going to fail,
Yeah.
and they're going to fail in what we do. But are they growing? Are they becoming better men, with what we do? We do a lot of unique things in our program. I do a class sign-in sheet. And our kids, early, they don't like it, and they learn to love it. And their first class of the day, no matter what time it is, they have to sign in 15 minutes prior to their first class of the day, and they have to sign my door. And I'm here. That's why I was here at 7:05 today. Is I had a player that had an 8 a.m. class, so at least by 7:45 he has to sign my door. But I want me to be the first guy that our players see every single day. Because you played in college. How many times did you go to practice and that was the only time you saw your coach for the day?
That was about every day. Yeah.
So then on those days where he's mad and he's frustrated, that's your only taste of that person for the day. And I tell our recruits, I'm going to be more than just a guy you see in practice. And so when we do this class sign-in sheet, one, it's to help them academically. I know they're awake. I know they're moving around. I know they're headed in the right direction for the day. So they're headed to class. We have an academic board that has all their assignments on the board for the week. So when they come and sign in, they look at the board, they know what's coming up for the week so they can start getting their assignments done. But I started that because I had part-time assistants. I didn't have time to go check classes. And I didn't have time. So I was like, how can I make them come to me?
Yeah.
And so I started this class sign-in sheet. Well, then it became so much more because my relationships grew even stronger with our kids because they're coming to my office every day. And guys that have class at, like our kid that had class at 8, he's in by 7:25 this morning. Doesn't have to be in until 7:45, but he's in at 7:25. So then he sits down and we're just talking for 20 minutes before he's heading to class.
Yeah.
And that happens with our staff, with our players. That happens with me as they come in. And I think that's something unique that we do because I don't think a lot of programs do that. But I think with us, that relationship part, they're up here and they know, hey, we got someone in our corner with us. So when we do fail, we got people we can count on. And I think that's important for young people, for our players, is they're going to need help. And I don't know what it's going to be. It's not just going to be basketball for these guys.
Right.
I remember one of my first years, I had signed this freshman out of Lakeview Centennial. And I was a young assistant, and I love this kid. He actually texts me today. We still talk. He's a women's basketball coach at Louisiana Tech now, assistant coach there on the girls' side. And so I remember he was with us, and his dad died of a massive heart attack at the age of 42. And he was just getting back to where he was building a relationship with his dad again, because his mom is who he lived with. And when we did the in-home and everything, it was mom. And he was just getting to know his dad, and his dad dies of a heart attack at 42. And this kid is a sophomore. We'd just gone through a hard freshman year with him. He was freshman of the year in the league, but it was just hard for him being away from home. And then boom, he gets hit with this. How are we equipped to handle this? Who's he lean on? Well, he leans on us, and so my head coach and I are with him at like 2 a.m, crying with him and being there for him. And, we're the family there that's with him in that scenario. A lot of times, and I don't care what level it is of coaching, these kids lean on us as coaches. And they have to know that we're more than just basketball coaches. They have to know that we're people in their lives that they can count on. And so what started off as something I did because I had part-time assistants has led to so much more in our program. And it's what allows me to be able to coach hard and not ever have to worry, is that kid going to walk out the door? I mean, I've had coaches ask me, hey, what do you do in your preseason? And I'll tell them sometimes some of the stuff that we do, and it's challenging. I want it to be challenging. And they'll go, are you not afraid someone's going to quit? And my answer is always no, because if they quit, I got the wrong person in this program anyways. But I don't feel like they're going to quit because I think our coaches have a strong relationship with them outside of practice. And it
Yeah.
started with something as simple as that class sign-in sheet. They get to see me, whether it's 5 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, outside of practice at a minimum every day like that. And it's just something that strengthened our program so much, and it's something that I've stuck with ever since I was the head coach my very first year at Oklahoma City. I've never went away from that. Now I'm at a place where I'm a little bit more spoiled. I have a bigger staff that can go out and do a lot more things, and we're still doing it because I understood how much more came from that.
Yeah.
And I think when we talk about failure, you and I are talking about growth, because I think that's where, when we're talking about our journey to where we're at, who was there for you when you were failing as a coach? You called a mentor, you called somebody you leaned on. And I try to take it with our players. Who's going to be there for our players when they fail?
Yeah.
Do they trust you enough? Do they have the relationship enough that you're going to be their call, that you're going to be their text, that you're going to be their meeting if they walk in with you, that you can be the guy to help them through failure? And I just think everyone's journey is so different. In the real game is life. It's not basketball, but everyone's journey is so different in the game of life that they got to understand that, hey, we're going to fail. And that may be a loss. That may be a loss of a loved one. That may be whatever. We can define it in a lot of different ways. But then do we grow from it? Do we learn from it? And whether it's a mistake that they made, whether it's a loss of someone, or how do you grow from it? How do you get better? And I think as coaches, when we've failed, what do you do when you lose a game? You're up all night, you're watching film, or you're up early the next day, you're watching film. What are you doing? You're trying to grow, you're trying to get better so you don't taste defeat again. But we're growing, we're doing something to grow. And so I love that quote by PJ Fleck because of that, because I think it, not just with sports, but it encompasses so much more with life, is, man, failing is growth, and you're not a failure until you quit. And so I don't care if you win a lot of games or lose a lot of games, you're not a failure until you quit at this thing. You quit on these kids, you quit on your job, you quit on a marriage, whatever it might be. But, what is failure? And so I love that. I love that podcast. It'd be one I suggest for you. I know you wrote my book down, and I love that book. I tell you, it's the only book I've read in the last probably 5 years. But PJ Fleck's podcast is just, I think it did a lot for me as far as self-reflection. Some of the things he had to say in that is it did a lot. And I think if you trust yourself and you're true to yourself, those are the things that help you along the way as a coach get through some of those failures. Is trust in yourself, because, man, I could have quit when we won 10 games at Northwestern.
Yeah.
But I took that team through COVID. I mean, I could have said, hey, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I can't do this. And it's just not for me. Maybe I'm not a good enough coach. But instead, what I do? I mean, I started looking for different things. I read a book. I was looking for different ideas. I was growing. I was learning as a coach. That helped me have the season to get to here, and Brad Franz, who's the athletic director there at Northwestern, I told you, he took a chance on me to go to Northwestern, and I didn't want to fail him. I wanted to work my tail off for him. And he helped me, and he's a reason I'm here. And Jim Abbott, my AD at Oklahoma City, is a reason why I'm here. And I go all the way back, and you look at all the people that's helped you along the way. They've not just helped you get to where you're at, they've helped you grow and become the person you are today. And so I still I talked to Brad Franz last night for 40 minutes, and I'm not even working for him anymore, because he became a closer friend when I left Northwestern. And so, it's just been awesome. I've worked for great administrators. When I worked at Oklahoma City, because of traffic, I lived in Edmond, and I got there at 7:15 every day. I had to leave at 6:45 to get there. There was two people at work every day, and it was Jim Abbott and Kelly Perry. Jim Abbott was our athletic director. Kelly Perry was our associate AD. When I got to Northwestern, and I'm doing the same thing there, I'm there early every morning. There's one guy there, and it's Brad Franz, our athletic director. When I get to work at Angelo State, the guy that's here at 8 a.m. or before every morning is James Reed, our athletic director. And so I've been fortunate. I've worked at places where the people I work for work just as hard.
Yeah.
That's why the athletic departments I've been fortunate enough to work for have had the success that they've had. It hasn't been me, I promise you. It does not have anything to do. We've had good administrators, players, staff, and I've just been really fortunate in this thing. And it's been a fun ride. I'll tell you that right now. It's been a very fun ride for me. And, I'm hoping it's something I can continue to do for a very long time.
I want to get the speed round in so that all those guys that if any of the coaches that have that you've worked for or they've worked for you or players listen to this, they'll get to know you even better, or they can kind of check and see if they knew these things already. You ready? All right. Favorite ice cream flavor?
I'm pretty vanilla. I will go, but I'm going to tell you too. I'm going to go vanilla and or cookies and cream because I love them both the same.
Nice. Greatest shooter of all time?
Oh, that's a hard one. That's a hard one. You mean now or ever? You said all time.
All time.
All time. Shoot, that is a very difficult one. I'm going to just say, for the sake of no argument from anyone right now, I'm going to say Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Unbelievable right now, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen anyone like him.
Your favorite one-liner to tell players, like when guys graduate or they come back years later, they're like, Coach, you just always said this. What would it be?
I don't know if we can say that on the air. So
That's fair.
We'll censor that one, but
Yeah.
I think that'll be the best way to describe.
There you go. Best basketball movie of all time.
Best basketball movie I like. I mean, I love Hoosiers. I'm going to give you two on this, but I'm going to give you Hoosiers because I love Hoosiers as a basketball movie. I'm going to also give you a non-basketball sports movie. That's my favorite sports movie. Is Cinderella Man, boxing movie. I could go into a long deal on that deal. I will refrain from doing it, but I will throw this nugget at you before you get to the next one. How come every sport, I don't care what sport it is, football, basketball, baseball, how come a lot of analogies we use deals with boxing?
I don't know.
So I'm gonna throw that nugget at you, and you can think about that one. But I love Cinderella Man. It's a boxing movie set in the Great Depression. It's a man that overcomes a lot of adversity to become a really good boxer, and
Yeah.
I love the movie.
Yeah, I would think just the struggle, the and how if you stick with it, any given moment you can, kind of triumph or overcome. I don't know. It's good.
Times in the locker room have you said throw the first punch, or then how many times have you said knock them out? Or how many times have you said don't let them back in the corner or whatever? You know what I mean? We use many analogies from boxing. I've always thought about that. It's been very intriguing to me. I don't have a good answer for that, but that's why I added Cinderella Man to my answer.
I like that. Texting or talking?
Talking, no doubt about it. Phone calls.
For a high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Got to have a shot clock.
Thanks, Coach.
Look at the direction the game is going. Within 10 years, we will have a shot clock in high school. I do think that. I do think in college, hopefully for men's basketball, we're going to have 4 quarters. We're the only sport that has 2 halves as far as basketball. And you look at FIBA, NBA,
no doubt.
AU. I mean, what are we doing right now? Let's get to 2 halves. I want to advance the ball with a timeout.
Would you like it to go to 24 shot clock?
I think that's coming within the next 10 years. I don't like it. I'm more of a defensive guy. I know you're more of a shooter, but I'm fearing that defensive 3 seconds in the lane is coming. But I don't know. I hope it doesn't. I'm a guy. I love midline. I want to put the tape down.
That's what makes the USA team struggle in FIBA and all those. Is that pain is just junked up. That's why Luka said that the NBA has the best players, but it's easier to score in the NBA than overseas. So I see that. Favorite holiday?
Favorite holiday for me is always going to be Christmas because you get time off with your family. I think we're in the hardest sport when it comes to time. We cross about every major holiday you can imagine.
Yeah.
The one where we get time off with our families is Christmas. And I told you I have so many good memories of coming to San Angelo for Christmas. It made me love this place and it made me want to be here. So, that one's a great.
Name a bucket list item you still need to do.
Go to Fenway Park and watch a Red Sox game.
Nice.
Sure.
That's a good one. Last one in basketball. Who is the GOAT?
Michael Jordan, not even a question. Not even a question. I mean, I'm telling you this right now. If today's players, I mean, there was the Jordan rules for a reason.
Yeah.
Never heard of the LeBron rules. How many times have you seen YouTube videos or whatever else of phantom fouls and LeBron acting? There was no way Jordan could do that. I mean, that dude got hammered at the rim. The Pistons just crushed him. So,
yeah. Just watch The Last Dance. For anybody that's on the fence about who it is, watch The Last Dance and just, you don't have to like him, but was there anybody better? I don't know. But
I'll add to this too is how much more would he have scored if they knew how important the 3-point line was back then?
yeah, there wasn't emphasis on it at all. He could obviously do it because he hit one game where he had 7, and there was like, I can't believe he had 7. Now that just seems like such a normal number. Yeah.
I mean, it was common to see NBA games and they take less than 10 threes for a team.
Yeah.
Now it's unheard of, right? With the way the game is going.
that's the first 4 minutes.
So I just think he would have scored even more, you know.
Yeah.
And I know everyone debates that because they think there's longer and better players and more skill. And I do think the league and college and high school is the players are getting bigger.
Yeah.
I think all our guys are more skilled. You know, we're losing back to the basket bigs like crazy. Fortunately, you know, I'm hoping we got 1 or 2 on our team this year. But I think with the way that the basketball has shaped, it would have been even better for Jordan now.
No doubt. Coach, this was so much fun, man. Like, I really appreciate your time. And I just, the way that you run your program, the story, it was just so enjoyable to get to learn more about you. And definitely you got a fan here. I think you've done great things. I just think you're going to continue to do great things.
I appreciate you having me on. I mean, I look forward to seeing your team. I mean, I've heard, I mean, always through podcasts, some of the things that you've done because of other coaches that know you a lot better talking about it. But now I'm like, hey, I was thinking about that when I was mowing on Saturday, listening to one of your podcast. Is I got to see one of his games, man. I got threes still. What are you doing?
We do like to shoot the 3, but it's so simple. We're so simple that whenever I do share film, I always, you know, it's that voice in your head that's like, they're just gonna laugh, you know. No, but it's just about. I think playing obviously with pace and space, that's thrown around a lot, but just teaching guys how to be dangerous with where they stand, with the ball touches their fingertips, give them clear decisions to make. Because I think with that clarity, like you've been talking about, in simplicity, they can really be dynamic. And we do value the 3. And I don't believe in you know, you always hear about momentum, you know, and the 3 things that you really got to worry about as a coach: time, score, moment. I don't believe in those. And I just believe in each possession being separate. And because of that, we can miss 9 to 10 threes in a row. And we better take the next one if it's the right shot for us. But anyway, Coach, this was great. And I do want to ask you if coaches want to learn more about you, because you did mention a few things like the defensive scheme and things like that they want to learn more. What's a good way for them to contact you?
I always tell them contact me through email. You know, for people I don't know, I don't mind, you know, my cell phone being out there either. A million people have it. But I try to respond to any coach that reaches out to me. You know, I spoke at the TABC clinic this year. My staff has done a really nice job of convincing me to say yes to people this year, because I really had always, I'd turned down.
So is this how, are they the reason this happened? Is they told you to just say yes?
This one. I just finally said, because of them making me do that TABC clinic, and I just said I'm just going to start saying yes to things because I think it's a great way to promote our program. And you know, and I love Angelo State. It's been an awesome place for me. So if it gives us a chance to promote our program and our athletic department, our university, I'm going to do it. But you know, I'm telling you, you know, for the defensive stuff, that thing is online, that TABC clinic, and I broke down our shell and things like that as well. And so, you know, if people want to start there, if they're curious on that, and I'll tell you this, I don't mind talking offense. I mean, if people label me as a defensive coach, which is fine. I mean, you know, we're going to try to guard. We're going to try to be really good on that end. But I always laugh because our teams are always up there, you know, in field goal percent offense, you know, and scoring. And, you know, we were top whatever in the league in scoring, we're top whatever in the league in field goal percent this last year. But people always peg me as a defensive coach, and I tell my recruits we're gonna guard. I mean, there's no doubt, but I want to run, and we can't run if we're going through the net all the time.
Yeah.
And so so I find that funny. So I don't know, but I'm open to whatever. Our practices are open. If anyone wants to come on down to San Angelo. We're open to anybody. If you want to come down, come on down.
Man, I'd love to. This was such a pleasure. Hope we can create a friendship, keep this relationship going from this, and just really appreciate your time, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.